The great chamber of the Galactic Council was built long before humans learned to make fire. Its walls curved upward like the inside of a shell, covered in lights that moved like slow rivers. 12 species sat in their places, each one older than the mountains of Earth. They had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 cycles. They had forgotten what war looked like. Counselor Thelmira floated in her gravity cradle, her silk-thin body catching the soft light. She was 300 years old, young for her kind. She watched the main door with 6 eyes that never blinked. Today, the council would meet the newcomers, the creatures from the Death World. The door opened without sound. Admiral Teho Kang walked into the chamber with steady steps. He wore a simple gray uniform with no medals and no weapons. His face was calm, and he smiled often. Behind him came 4 others, all dressed the same way. They looked small against the massive hall. They looked harmless. Una Park stood at the Admiral's right side. She was the team's translator, a woman who had spent 15 years learning to speak with beings who had no mouths. She kept her hands folded in front of her and her eyes soft. But inside her chest, her heart beat fast. She could feel the weight of alien attention pressing down on her like deep water. The council watched in silence as the humans approached. "We welcome the representatives of Earth," said the lead counselor, a being of pure energy contained in a crystal shell. His voice echoed through the chamber like wind through caves. "You have traveled far." Teho Kang bowed his head. "We thank the council for this honor. Humanity is grateful for the chance to speak." Counselor Velthrix leaned forward. He was a mind weaver, a species that could read the surface thoughts of most creatures. His long fingers tapped against his chair as he studied the humans. He searched for their fears, their desires, their secrets. He found nothing. Their minds were like walls of smooth stone. "Your world," Velthrix said slowly, "is classified as Category 7, a death world, the highest danger rating we give to any planet." Teho nodded. "Yes, we know. The gravity alone should crush soft tissue. Your atmosphere contains a corrosive gas that burns through metal over time. Your oceans are filled with predators. Your land is covered with toxic plants and creatures with venom." Velthrix paused. "How did you survive?" Teho's smile did not change. "We adapted." The word hung in the air. Counselor Thelmira felt something cold move through her body. She did not know the word for it. Her species had not felt fear in 1,000 generations. The meeting continued for many hours. The humans answered every question with patience. They asked for nothing except a small territory on the edge of the galaxy, far from the major trade routes. They promised to follow council law. They promised to remain peaceful. The council voted. Humanity was granted their territory. As the humans turned to leave, Una Park looked back at the great chamber one last time. She saw the 12 species watching them go. She saw the relief on their alien faces. They thought the danger had passed. Una knew better. Outside the chamber, the human team walked through the long corridors of the station. Other species moved aside to let them pass. Some stared with curiosity. Others refused to look at them at all. "They're afraid of us," said Lieutenant Do-Hun Cha, the youngest member of the team. He was 26 years old, born on a colony ship between stars. "We haven't done anything, and they're already afraid." Teho kept walking. "They should be." Do-Hun looked at the Admiral with surprise. "Sir?" "Their fear is correct," Teho said quietly. "They just don't know why yet." They reached their ship, a small vessel that looked old and simple compared to the sleek council crafts around it. But Una knew the truth. The ship's hull was made from materials that did not exist in any council database. Its engines could outrun anything in the known galaxy. They boarded in silence, the door sealed behind them. In his private quarters, Taiho Kang removed his diplomatic smile like taking off a mask. He sat down heavily and closed his eyes. Behind his calm face, calculations ran through his mind like rivers of ice. The Council had accepted humanity. That was the first step. Now came the hard part. The waiting. Yuna knocked on his door and entered without waiting for an answer. They had known each other for 20 years. She did not need permission. "Velthrix tried to read our minds," she said. "I know. He failed. I know that too." Taiho opened his eyes. "Our mental training held, but he suspects something. The Mindweavers always suspect." Yuna sat down across from him. "How long do we wait?" "As long as it takes." Taiho looked out the small window at the stars. The Council thinks they are the masters of this galaxy. They have never faced a real threat. They have grown soft and slow. When danger comes, they will fall. And we will be there to catch them? Taiho shook his head. No. We will be there to save them, whether they want it or not. Far away, on a frozen moon orbiting a gas giant, a young engineer named Hansu Oh walked through corridors of ice. Below his feet, buried deep in the frozen ground, something massive waited in the dark. Row after row of ships, their engines cold, their weapons silent. Thousands of them. The greatest fleet ever built by human hands. Hansu stopped at a viewing window and looked down at the sleeping giants. "Soon," he whispered, "but not yet." The galaxy did not know what humans really were. They saw the smiles and the bows and the soft words. They saw weakness, they saw prey. They did not see the truth. Humanity had not climbed to the top of Earth's food chain by being gentle. They had done it with teeth and fire and blood. Every human alive carried the memory of 1,000,000 years of survival in their bones. They were predators wearing the skin of diplomats, and they were very, very patient. Back on the council station, Councillor Velthrix sat alone in his chamber. He could not sleep. Something about the humans haunted him. Something in the way they moved. Something in the way their eyes tracked every movement in the room, even while they smiled. He pulled up the records of Earth on his screen. He read about the wars, the famines, the plagues, the countless times humanity should have died, and yet they survived. Again and again, against all odds. "What are you?" Velthrix whispered to the empty room. The screen showed him images of Earth, blue oceans, green forests, white clouds. It looked beautiful. It looked like a lie. 30 years passed, like water through open fingers. Humanity kept its promises. They stayed in their small territory. They traded fairly. They bowed to council authority and smiled at every insult. Other species called them weak. They called them cowards. They said humans were the lowest form of intelligent life, barely better than animals. The humans said nothing. They just smiled and waited. On the ice moon of Europa, deep beneath the frozen surface, General Mirai Shin stood before a window of reinforced glass. Below her stretched a cavern so large it could hold a city. And in that cavern, row after row of warships slept in perfect silence. Mirai was 53 years old. Her hair was gray at the temples, and her eyes held the kind of calm that came from seeing too much death. She had commanded soldiers since she was 22. She had buried friends and enemies alike. She knew the weight of war better than most. "Status report," she said without turning around. Captain Yunji Moon stepped forward, a datapad in her hands. She was young, barely 30, but she had earned her place in Project Sentinel through blood and skill. "All systems remain stable, General. The fleet is at full readiness. We can wake them in 4 hours if needed." Mirai nodded slowly. "And the crews?" 12,000 soldiers in cryosleep. Vital signs normal across all units." Yunji paused. They've been sleeping for 8 years now. The medical team says we should rotate them soon. Not yet. Mireille placed her hand on the cold glass. The time isn't right. Below them, the flagship of the Predator fleet rested like a sleeping dragon. Its name was painted on the hull in simple letters, Guangaito. It was named after an ancient king who had expanded his empire across the land. A conqueror, a warrior. The ship was beautiful in the way a blade was beautiful. Every line served a purpose. Every angle was designed to kill. Mireille remembered the day they finished building it. She remembered standing on the bridge for the first time, feeling the power beneath her feet. The Council thought humanity had no military. They thought the humans had given up their weapons to join the peaceful galactic community. They were wrong. In a small room near the cryogenic chambers, Hansuo said goodbye to his daughter. She was 7 years old with bright eyes and her mother's smile. She did not understand why her father had to go to sleep for so long. "When will you wake up?" she asked, holding his hand tight. Hansu knelt down to look at her face. "When I'm needed, little one. When the galaxy needs us." "But why do you have to sleep?" He thought about how to explain it in words she could understand. How do you tell a child that the universe is full of monsters? How do you explain that her father was trained to become a monster himself, just to fight them? "We sleep because we are waiting," he said finally. "Like seeds under the snow. We wait for spring." His daughter did not fully understand, but she hugged him tight and told him she loved him. Then her mother led her away, and Hansu walked alone into the cryogenic chamber. The pod was cold. The machines hummed as they prepared to freeze his body. Hansu closed his eyes and thought of his daughter. He thought of the life he might never see her live. Then the cold took him, and he dreamed of nothing. Across the galaxy, humanity continued to play its role. Ambassador Soman Bey attended council meetings with perfect politeness. She listened to debates about trade routes and resource allocation. She voted the way the elder species wanted her to vote. She never argued. She never complained. But every night, she sent encrypted reports back to Earth. Every detail, every weakness, every secret the Council thought they had hidden. Soman was 41 years old. She had been chosen for this mission because she could lie without blinking. She could smile at beings who looked down on her and feel nothing but cold patience. She was a weapon disguised as a diplomat. One evening, after a particularly long council session, Counselor Thelmira approached her. The silk-bodied creature moved like flowing water, her 6 eyes studying Soman with open curiosity. "You humans fascinate me," Thelmira said. "You are so different from the others." Soman kept her expression warm and humble. "We are just trying to learn, Counselor. We have much to learn from the elder species." "Yes, you always say that." Thelmira tilted her head. "But I watch you. All of you. You learn faster than any species I have seen. You adapt to everything. It is unsettling. We mean no harm." "I believe you." Thelmira paused. "But I wonder what you will become when you are done learning." She floated away without waiting for an answer. Someone watched her go. Inside her mind, she memorized every word. The silken web species was more observant than the others. They would need to be watched carefully. On the edge of known space, ancient sensors began to flicker. They were old machines, built millions of years ago by species long dead. Their purpose was simple: to watch the darkness between galaxies, to warn of threats from the void. For 1,000,000 years, they had been silent. Now, they began to scream. The first warnings arrived at the Council Station 3 days later. Strange signals from the galactic rim, energy patterns that matched nothing in their databases. Something was moving in the dark, something big. Counselor Velthrix reviewed the data with growing unease. The patterns looked almost familiar, like a nightmare he had read about in ancient texts. The first world to fall was called Velthora. It was a peaceful planet of bluegrass and gentle winds. 12 million beings lived there, mostly farmers and artists. They had never known war. They had never needed to. The swarm arrived at dawn. Ships poured out of empty space like locusts from a burning field. They were dark and twisted, their hulls covered in something that looked like living metal. They moved without pattern, without formation, driven by nothing but hunger. The Vethkai had returned. Velthora had no defense fleet. Why would they? The Council had promised peace. The Council had promised protection. When the swarm descended, the people of Velthora looked up at the sky and did not understand what they were seeing. They understood soon enough. The swarm consumed everything: buildings, vehicles, people. The Vethkai did not eat for pleasure or survival. They ate because eating was all they knew. Their bodies broke down matter and turned it into more of themselves. Every meal made them stronger. Every death gave them new soldiers. Velthora fell in 6 hours. 12 million lives gone like morning dew. The distress signal reached the council station 1 day later. Ambassador Soman Bey was standing in the observation deck when the alarms began. She watched through the great window as council ships scrambled to launch. Officers ran through corridors shouting orders. The elder species moved with panic in their steps. She felt nothing. Her communicator buzzed with an encrypted message from Earth. 3 words: stand by, watch. Soman closed her eyes and breathed deep. The waiting was almost over. In the council chamber, chaos ruled. The 12 species argued and blamed and pointed fingers at each other. Their peacekeeping fleet, designed for patrol duties and escort missions, was rushing toward the galactic rim. But everyone knew the truth. Those ships were not built for war. Counselor Thelmira's voice cut through the noise. We must call for aid. All species must contribute. This is not a threat to one world. This is a threat to all of us. Aid from where? Velthrix demanded. The Vethkai destroyed our ancestors. It took 1,000 generations to defeat them the first time. We thought they were extinct. They were hiding, said the lead counselor. His crystal shell flickered with unstable light. Hiding in the void, breeding, growing. On the tactical display, red dots spread across the map like a disease. 5 worlds had fallen now, then 10, then 20. The Council fleet engaged the swarm near the Meridian system, where 3 billion beings lived in floating cities above a gas giant. The battle lasted 40 minutes. Every Council ship was destroyed. The swarm did not slow down. It did not stop to celebrate or rest. It simply moved to the next target and kept eating. Counselor Thelmira watched the footage from Meridian with tears flowing from all 6 of her eyes. She saw the floating cities burn. She saw millions of her people trying to escape in ships that were too slow, too few. She saw the swarm catch them one by one. What do we do? She whispered. What can we do? No one had an answer. 57 worlds fell in 17 days. Billions of lives ended. The Great Galactic Council, masters of 10,000 stars, could do nothing but watch. In her quarters on the station, Soman Bey received another message. This one was longer. She read it carefully, memorized every word, then destroyed the device. She walked to the council chamber with steady steps. Her heart was calm. Her mind was clear. She had trained her whole life for this moment. The chamber fell silent when she entered. The elder species turned to look at her with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. They had ignored humanity for 30 years. They had mocked them and dismissed them. Now they had nowhere else to turn. Soman bowed her head in respect. Then she spoke. The Terran Union offers its assistance to the Galactic Council. Velthrix leaned forward. Assistance? What assistance can you offer? Your fleet is a handful of cargo ships. Your population is nothing compared to ours. What can humans possibly do against the swarm? Soman looked at him with eyes that held no fear. You do not know what we are, counselor. You never bothered to learn. Then tell us. She smiled. It was a smile that Velthrix would remember for the rest of his life. It was not warm. It was not kind. It was the smile of something that had been pretending to be tame. We are what Earth made us, Soman said. We are survivors. We are hunters. We have been fighting for our lives since before we learned to speak. Every generation of humanity was shaped by death. The weak died. The strong lived. Again and again. For millions of years. She paused to let her words sink in. You called our world a death planet. You called us primitive. You thought we were harmless because we smiled and bowed and said the right words. But we were never harmless. We were waiting. Thelmira spoke softly. Waiting for what? For this. Soman gestured at the tactical display, still covered in red. For the moment when the galaxy needed what we really are. The chamber was completely silent. Soman pulled out a small device and pressed a button. A new channel opened, carrying her voice across the stars to a frozen moon, where ancient ships waited in the dark. Admiral Kang, this is Ambassador Bay. The Council has heard our offer. Taiho Kang's voice came through clear and calm. Understood. What is their answer? Every eye in the chamber turned to the lead counselor. The ancient being of light and crystal looked at Soman, then at the map of dying worlds, then at the faces of his fellow counselors. He had no choice. They all knew it. We accept, he said. Whatever aid humanity can provide, we accept. Soman nodded and spoke into the device one last time. They are ready to listen, Admiral. Across the galaxy, Taiho Kang stood on the bridge of a small transport ship. He was 61 years old now, his hair fully gray, his body worn by decades of patience, but his eyes were sharp as ever. He looked out at the stars and gave the order that would change everything. Wake them up. On Europa, beneath miles of ice, alarms began to sound. Lights flickered on in corridors that had been dark for years. Cryogenic pods opened with hissing breaths of cold air. The Predator fleet was waking up, and the galaxy would never be the same. The signal traveled through space at the speed of light. It touched satellites and relay stations hidden in asteroid fields. It passed through encrypted channels that no Council scanner had ever found. And finally, it reached the ice moon of Europa, where 12,000 soldiers slept in frozen silence. General Mirai Shin was the first to wake. Her eyes opened to cold air and flashing lights. Her body ached from years of stillness. But her mind was sharp, already calculating, already planning. She had dreamed of nothing during her sleep, but now she remembered everything. The mission, the purpose, the war that was waiting. She pulled herself out of the cryopod and stood on unsteady legs. Around her, other pods were opening. Men and women emerged, their breath forming clouds in the frigid air. None of them spoke. They did not need to. They all knew what this moment meant. Captain Yunji Moon appeared at Mirai's side, offering a uniform and a datapad. General, the Council has requested our help. The Vethkai have taken 62 worlds. Their main swarm is moving toward the core systems. Mirai took the uniform and began dressing with quick, efficient movements. How long until the fleet is ready? 4 hours for full activation. We can launch in 6. Make it 3. No one questioned the order. They simply moved faster. In the cryogenic bay, Hansu-O opened his eyes for the first time in 8 years. His first thought was of his daughter. She would be 15 now. He wondered if she still remembered his face. Then training took over. He pushed the thoughts aside and focused on his duty. Personal feelings could wait. The galaxy could not. He reported to the engineering bay and began running diagnostics on the flagship's systems. Everything was perfect. The ship had slept well. Now it was ready to hunt. 3 hours later, the Predator fleet launched. They rose from beneath the ice like ancient beasts waking from a long sleep. 12,000 warships, their hulls black as the void between stars. Their engines burned with cold blue fire, their weapons hummed with barely contained power. The Council had never seen anything like it. On the central station, Councillor Velthrix watched the fleet emerge on his tactical display. His hands trembled. His mind struggled to process what he was seeing. "Impossible," he whispered. "This is impossible." The human ships were not built for beauty or elegance. They were built for one purpose: destruction. Every line was sharp. Every surface was armored. They looked like knives made into the shape of starships. Admiral Taiho Kang's voice came through on the open channel. "Councilors, the Terran Predator fleet is now active. We are moving to intercept the swarm at the Corinth cluster. Please keep your remaining vessels away from the combat zone." Councilor Thelmira found her voice. "Admiral, how? How did you build this? How did you hide this from us?" Taiho's answer was simple. "We did not hide it, Councilor. You simply never looked." The fleet moved in perfect formation. Each ship knew its place. Each crew knew its role. They had trained for this their entire lives. Some of them had been born on ships, raised in military academies, shaped from childhood to become weapons. Lieutenant Jiwon No sat in the cockpit of his strike fighter. He was 28 years old, young for a pilot, but his skills were legendary among the fleet. His instructors said he flew like he had been born in the stars. Maybe he had been. "All strike teams, this is Wolf Leader," Jiwon said into his comm. "Formation Beta, wait for the signal." Around him, 200 fighters moved into position. They were small compared to the capital ships, but they were fast and deadly. Their job was simple: get close to the swarm, hit hard, get out, again and again until nothing was left. The Corinth cluster came into view, and there, filling the space like a living shadow, the Vethkai swarm waited. General Mirai Shin stood on the bridge of the Guangaito. She watched the swarm on the main display. Millions of enemy vessels, millions of hungry mouths. She felt no fear. She had hunted worse things in her nightmares. "All ships," she said. Her voice carried across the fleet on every channel. "We did not build this fleet for glory. We did not build it for conquest. We built it because we knew the universe does not forgive weakness. Today we show the galaxy what humanity truly is." She paused. "Fire at will." The fleet opened fire. Lines of plasma cut through space like burning spears. Missiles launched in waves, their warheads designed to pierce swarm armor and explode from within. The lead ships pushed forward, their shields absorbing enemy fire as they carved a path through the enemy. The Vethkai fought back with savage fury. They swarmed around the human ships, trying to overwhelm them with numbers. But human tactics were designed for exactly this. The fleet moved together, covering each other, rotating shields, never staying still long enough to be surrounded. Jiwon's fighter dove into the heart of the battle. Enemy ships filled his vision. He did not hesitate. His fingers moved across the controls with calm precision. Targets exploded, debris scattered. He kept moving. Wolf Leader to command. Enemy hive ship located at Sector 7, requesting permission to engage. Mirai's voice came back immediately. "Permission granted, take it down." Jiwon smiled. "With pleasure." He pushed his fighter to maximum speed. The hive ship was massive, a twisted mountain of living metal that commanded thousands of smaller vessels. Kill it, and a whole section of the swarm would fall into chaos. His team followed him in. Enemy fire filled the space around them. 3 pilots went down, then 4. Jiwon kept flying. He had one chance. The weak point was there, a gap in the armor near the central core. He lined up his shot, breathed out, and fired. The explosion was beautiful. The hive ship split apart, its smaller vessels scattering like confused insects. Ji-Wan pulled up hard and flew through the debris, his fighter scratched but whole. Wolf Leader to command. Target destroyed. Across the battlefield, the tide was turning. The swarm was powerful, but it had never faced anything like the Predator fleet. Human ships moved with deadly coordination. Human weapons cut through swarm armor like it was paper. Human soldiers fought with the cold efficiency of those who had trained their whole lives for war. The battle lasted 17 days. When it ended, the Vethkai swarm was broken. Their queen was captured, contained in a stasis field aboard the Guangeto. Their surviving vessels fled into the void, scattered and leaderless. The Galactic Council had watched the entire battle. They had seen the humans fight. They had seen what the smiling diplomats truly were beneath their gentle masks, and they were afraid. General Mireille Shin stood on her bridge, surrounded by victory, but she did not celebrate. She simply looked out at the stars and thought about what came next. The swarm was defeated, but the real challenge was just beginning. Now humanity had to live in a galaxy that finally understood what they were. The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so silent. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Corinth. 3 months since humanity revealed its true face. The swarm was scattered. The Queen was imprisoned. 62 worlds were dead, but no more would fall. The galaxy was saved, and the galaxy was terrified. Admiral Tai-Ho Kong walked into the chamber alone. He wore the same simple gray uniform he had worn 30 years ago. His face was calm, and his steps were steady. But everything else had changed. The elder species did not look at him with dismissal anymore. They looked at him with fear. He stopped in the center of the chamber and waited. Counselor Velthrix spoke first. His voice was cold and sharp. "You deceived us. For 30 years you hid a war fleet beneath our noses. You pretended to be weak while building weapons of mass destruction. You lied to the Council." Tai-Ho nodded slowly. "Yes. Do you deny it?" "No." Tai-Ho met the Mindweaver's eyes without flinching. "We did exactly what you said. We hid our strength. We built our fleet in secret. We waited. Why? Because we knew this day would come." Tai-Ho gestured at the chamber, at the species who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. "Look at yourselves. You forgot how to fight. You forgot what danger looks like. You built a civilization of peace on top of a graveyard, and you never thought the dead might come back." Thelmira's soft voice interrupted. "We thought the Vethkai were extinct. We had no way of knowing." "You should have known," Tai-Ho said. "The universe is not kind. It does not forgive weakness. Somewhere, somehow, there is always something waiting to destroy what you have built. That is the truth of existence. You were lucky for 10,000 years. We knew the luck would run out." The chamber was silent. The lead counselor floated forward, his crystal shell dim with exhaustion. He was old, even by the standards of his species. The war had aged him further. "What do you want, Admiral?" "You have proven your strength. You could conquer us now if you wished. What does humanity want?" Tai-Ho was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was not the voice of a conqueror. It was the voice of a tired man who had carried a heavy burden for too long. "We do not want to conquer you. We never did." He took a breath. "On Earth, there is a saying, 'Those who can, must.' We have the strength to protect this galaxy, so we will. Not because we want power, not because we want glory, because someone has to." He looked around the chamber, meeting every eye. "For 30 years, you called us weak. You called us primitive. You gave us a corner of the galaxy and told us to be grateful. And we accepted it. Not because we were afraid of you, but because we were waiting for the right moment. The moment when you would understand." "Understand what?" Velthrix demanded. that we are not your enemies. Taiho's voice softened. We are your guardians. We always have been. From the moment we first looked up at the stars, we knew we were not alone. We knew there would be threats. We knew we would have to become strong enough to face them. Counselor Thelmira drifted closer. Her 6 eyes studied the human with something new. Not fear, not suspicion, understanding. You built the fleet for us, she said slowly. Not against us. Yes. You hid it because you knew we would be afraid. You knew we would try to stop you. Yes. Thelmira was quiet for a moment. Then she did something that surprised everyone in the chamber. She bowed her head. I misjudged your people, Admiral. I thought you were pretending to be peaceful while planning conquest. But you were pretending to be weak so that you could be strong when we needed you. Taiho inclined his head in return. We learned patience from watching you. We learned diplomacy from studying your ways. But strength we brought from home. The council debated for 3 days. Some species wanted to expel humanity from the alliance. Others wanted to surrender to them completely. But in the end, they reached a different choice. Humanity was granted a permanent seat on the council, not as guests, not as junior members, as equals, as protectors. The vote was not unanimous. Velthrix opposed it to the end. But even he knew the truth. The galaxy needed what humans could offer. The galaxy needed predators. After the vote, Unipark found Admiral Kang standing alone on the observation deck. He was looking out at the stars, his face unreadable. We did it, Una said softly. 30 years of planning, and we actually did it. Taiho nodded. We did. Why don't you look happy? He turned to face her. Because this is not an ending. This is a beginning. The Vethkai will return someday, or something worse will come. The universe is full of threats we cannot imagine. Our job is never finished. Una stood beside him and looked out at the infinite darkness. Then we keep watching. Yes, we keep watching. On Europa, General Mirai Shin ordered the Predator fleet back to their harbors. The ships descended beneath the ice once more, their engines cooling, their weapons going silent. They would sleep again, but not forever. Hansu O returned to Earth for the first time in years. His daughter was waiting at the spaceport. She was 15 now, tall and strong, with her mother's eyes and her father's steady hands. She ran to him and held him tight. You came back, she whispered. I promised I would. They walked together through the crowds. Around them, people moved in all directions, living their normal lives. They did not know about the secret fleet. They did not know how close the galaxy had come to destruction. They only knew that the danger had passed. Hansu looked at his daughter and felt something warm in his chest. Hope, future, purpose. Will you have to go back? She asked. Someday, when they need me. Will they always need you? Hansu thought about the stars, about the darkness between them, about the things that waited in that darkness. Hungry and patient. Yes, he said, they will always need us. Far across the galaxy, on the edge of known space, ancient sensors continued their watch. They scanned the void for movement, for signals, for threats. And in the endless dark, something new was stirring, something that made even the Vethkai seem small. But that was a problem for another day. Today, the galaxy was safe. Today, humanity stood as its guardian. And somewhere beneath the ice of Europa, 12,000 soldiers slept in perfect peace, ready to wake when the call came. The predators were watching. They would always be watching. It cannot be, he whispered. They were destroyed. We destroyed them. But the sensors did not lie. Whatever was coming, it was already close. Velthrix called an emergency meeting of the council. But even as the elder species gathered to debate and argue, he knew they were not ready. They had forgotten how to fight. They had forgotten what it meant to face true danger. He thought of the humans then, their strange calm, their patient smiles, the way their eyes tracked movement like predators watching prey. For the first time in his long life, Velthrix hoped he was wrong about them. He hoped they were truly the harmless creatures they pretended to be. Because if they were not, the galaxy would have to face a terrible choice: the monsters in the void, or the monsters they had invited into their home. Far away, beneath the ice of Europa, General Mirai Shin received a coded message. She read it once, then deleted it forever. She smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Soon," she said to the sleeping ships below. "Very soon.